Hello and welcome to Breakfast for Pancakes. I'm your host, PK Sullivan. Fall has arrived, it's mid-October, and that means it's apple season. I love cooking with apples. They are just so delicious once you work them into a pie or a crisp or a bread or even just eating plain. I love apples, they're so good. Today I'm going to show you how to do two quick and easy apple recipes, one a dessert and the other a breakfast. For this I have some Empire and Cortland apples I got at the local farmer's market. Don't ask me which is which, I couldn't tell you. All I know is I got a mix of Empire and Cortland apples because they were both listed as being good for baking, which is what I need for both of these recipes. Our apple dessert is apple bread. Very quick, simple, and easy, much like zucchini bread or banana bread, but it's made with apples and is just full of warm, happy feelings for me. Quick breads are a quintessential American fall food. It's a very simple recipe. You mix your dry ingredients, you mix your wet ingredients, you mix those together, then you fold in your fruit, put it into your pans, and bake them. This comes together in just a couple of minutes, and then it bakes for about 45 minutes. Serve it by itself, but you can also put a little bit of butter on it, have it for breakfast, have it for a snack, have it as a dessert. This recipe will make either 2 full-size loaf pans or 5 mini loaf pans. One thing I like about this recipe is it doesn't need a streusel topping because the top already gets very nice and crisp due to what we're putting in there. This is a dairy-free recipe, but it is not vegan. We are using eggs as part of the batter. Overnight oats with an apple cinnamon topping. This is inspired by my favorite childhood oatmeal flavor, the dried packets of oatmeal that you would make in the microwave. I always had a fondness for the apple cinnamon flavor, but now that I'm an adult, I like to do things with a little bit more control over what I'm putting into my food. I developed an overnight oats recipe with an apple cinnamon topping. Both recipes are incredibly simple. They're only a handful of ingredients. The oats literally are just oats and water. That's it. You mix the oats in the water, you put them in the sous vide overnight, you're done. The apple topping took a little bit of iteration. It started off with just apples and cinnamon, but that didn't work on its own. There were air gaps between the bits of apple, and it just never quite cooked the way that it should. The apples never developed that crisp but tender texture that I was looking for. It needed a liquid medium, but water and apple juice, neither of those worked. Instead, a friend of mine suggested I try using applesauce, and that worked like a charm. It gave enough of a liquid medium that the heat transfers from the sous vide water bath through the glass jar into the food evenly, very nicely. Ever since then, I've been making this for my breakfast pretty regularly. It takes 10 minutes of effort once a week in order to get the oats and the apples in the sous vide and going. And then I have lunches that are quickly microwaved for the rest of the week. It's hard to beat that level of convenience for a quick, easy, and healthy breakfast. Apple bread. Ingredients: flour, granulated sugar, brown sugar, baking soda, cinnamon, baking powder, kosher salt, vegetable oil, eggs, vanilla extract, apples. Preheat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, 175 degrees Celsius. Then peel, core, and chop your apples. It's always kind of fun to show off a little by peeling your apple all in one go. It's handy to keep a scraps bowl on the counter while you work. The peels and other scraps can go right in there without cluttering up your counter space. If you don't have an apple quarter, cut your apples into quarters and then cut the core out of each quarter. To chop an apple, cut it in half, pull the pole, then cross-cut it into planks. Rotate the apple so you're slicing pole to pole again, and make radial slices like when French slicing an onion. This gives rustic, bite-sized pieces of apple that won't get lost in the final bread. Weigh out 325 grams of chopped apples. In a large bowl, combine your flour, both sugars, baking soda, baking powder, kosher salt, cinnamon, whisk to combine. If the brown sugar is clumping, don't be afraid to break it up with your fingers. In a separate bowl, whisk together all of your eggs, oil, and vanilla extract. Be sure to break up the yolks first and don't over whisk this. You don't want to make vanilla mayonnaise. Add the liquid ingredients to the dry and mix until just combined. There should be no dry spots. Add the apples and fold them in. The batter will be thick and paste-like. Prepare your baking tins by spraying them with oil and then fill them each about 2/3 full. Pressing down on the batter will squeeze out air pockets. This is good both for contact with the pan and to ensure even cooking throughout the loaf. Load the loaves into the oven and set a timer. Check mini loaves after 40 minutes and full loaves after 50. Overnight oats with apple cinnamon topping. Ingredients: water, steel cut oats, apples, cinnamon, applesauce. Weigh the water in a 1-quart mason jar. Add the oats, apply the lid and band, then shake to mix so nothing sticks to the bottom. The oats are ready for sous vide. Again, prepare your apples by peeling and coring them. This recipe needs a finer dice, so I use a mandolin. Load the mandolin with dicing blades. These are a series of sawtooth-shaped blades that are perpendicular to the main blade. Adjust the depth as needed. My mandolin has 2 settings with the dicing blade, one for julienne and one for dicing. The dicing blades stick up past the main blade. Starting at the bottom of your mandolin, turn your wrist all the way to one direction and swipe up. At the top of the mandolin, turn your wrist 90 degrees the other way and swipe down. Repeat this pattern, turn, swipe, until the food is fully diced. It only takes a few seconds to go through an entire apple. Add your cinnamon to the apples and toss to combine. Spoon in a few tablespoons of applesauce and mix. There's no definitive measure. It will depend on the kind of apples you have, how finely they were diced, and how thick your applesauce is. You're looking for the diced apples to somewhat stick together like a rough dough. This means the applesauce is filled in the gaps and you're ready to go. You can use a jar to cook this, but I don't like digging the apples out past the neck. So I load the apples into a Pyrex container, put the lid on, and vacuum seal the whole thing. It works great. Using a trivet from my Instant Pot makes loading and retrieving the apples very easy. The apples do tend to float, so use something to weight them down. Once the apples and oats have been loaded, set your sous vide to 155 degrees Fahrenheit for 8 to 12 hours. Now it's time to retrieve the apple bread from the oven. Give it the toothpick test, and if it comes out clean, your apple bread is ready. Remove it from the pan. This can be difficult if it overflowed the edges, and slice it to serve. So this is apple bread. It's got a super tender crumb. The edges that overflowed, they get super crispy and crunchy like a really good cookie. I know I shouldn't overfill my pans, but I can't help it. That's my favorite part. Just a little bit of butter. I'll take this over banana bread any day. It's got all those warm fall flavors that you expect from apple or pumpkin desserts. If you wanted to punch that up even more, you could add some nutmeg and other spices to bring that up. I personally like it where it's apples and cinnamon. They're a classic combination, go great together. That's really all I need. This is great to have on the table at Thanksgiving, or if you're having guests over for brunch, it makes an excellent coffee cake sort of thing. It makes its own crispy, crunchy streusel topping. If you don't want the pan to overflow and leave those crispy edges so that you have a better presentation, just fill the pans a little bit less. If you use mini-loaf pans, just split it up amongst 6 of them. That'll prevent it from overflowing. I know for looks I should do that, but I love that crispy topping edge so much that I'm willing to sacrifice the looks of it just to get a couple of little nibbles like that. I make this every fall, and I don't see any reason that I won't continue making apple bread well into the future. So the next morning, go ahead and pull the oats and apples out of the sous vide bath. I like to use a paper towel lined quarter sheet tray just to control the spill. And with that, breakfast for up to 6 people is ready to go. All you have to do is pour your oats and dish up some of the apples. There are the apples. Oh, those smell just so good. Wonderful texture on the apples. They're still just a little bit firm, little toothsomeness to them. They taste like apple cider. That's a spoonful of fall as far as I'm concerned. Now to serve, all you need to do, scoop a bowl of oats, put a nice topping, and you are good to go. Perfectly tender, but not mushy. Thick and porridge-like. I love this oatmeal. And my breakfasts are set for the week. If you make this ahead, it'll keep in the fridge for up to a week, both of them. All you have to do is scoop out a bowl, microwave it for 60 to 90 seconds, and your breakfast is ready. If you wanted to do something a little less healthy, but a little sweeter, you could always add some brown sugar to the apples. That would punch up the sweetness and make it a more flavorful breakfast. I'm not real big on sweet breakfast. The natural sugars from the apple is just enough for me. Adding a pinch of salt to the oats also helps boost those flavors if you want a richer tasting oatmeal. Optional. I don't find that it makes a big difference for me. You might prefer it. You can try those variations. It works out just fine. Of course, this oatmeal works with any variety of oatmeal toppings that you care to use. Maple syrup, slivered almonds, dried cranberries, dried cherries, whatever you want to mix in. The oatmeal is oatmeal. It takes toppings very nicely. The cinnamon apple topping is just my favorite from my childhood. Enjoy. This week's shout out goes to Mike Worthley. Thank you so much for suggesting applesauce. It is the perfect medium for the apple topping. Worked out great, and I hope other people can learn from your wisdom as much as I did. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. It really helps me out.